And some of the statements are absolutely gut-wrenching, with many asking horrifying websites on the internet that you should never visit, Part 1. GoodbyeWarden.com gives the last words of 565 Texas inmates who were executed on death row. And some of the statements are absolutely gut-wrenching, with many asking someone to take care of their children when they're gone, and others insisting upon their innocence. DeathDate.info is a dark, morbid site that asks you to enter your name, age, weight, and height before spitting out the exact date that it thinks you're going to die. The site also provides you with 3 words that it says will be related to your death in some way. PlaneCrashInfo.com has an extensive database filled with recordings, pictures, and transcripts of the final moments of a plane crashing. And MidnightInTheDesert.com has unedited footage of the 67 exorcisms of Annalicia Mikkel. And trust me, her demonic screams will haunt your nightmares.
I was busy thinking about.
On May 14, 2008, Brandon Swanson left his college just after midnight. At 2 AM he called his parents and told them that he crashed his car into a ditch and he couldn't get it out. He wasn't injured, he told them the location, and the parents set out to find him. But they couldn't find him or the car. Brandon remained on the phone with them and he told them that he would flash his car lights and they would do the same. But neither of them saw the lights. 47 minutes into the call, his parents heard him yell, "Oh shit," and the call was disconnected. When police pulled his cell phone records, his last location was 25 miles away from where Brandon said he was. And his car was found in the opposite direction from where Brandon said he was. To this day, we still don't know where he is or what happened.
These are some of the creepiest things that have ever been found inside of the ocean, and trust me, you won't believe this last one. There's a 200-year-old fully intact train that is at the bottom of the ocean off the coast of New Jersey, and nobody knows how it got there. Just recently, scientists discovered that there are spiders that live and breathe underwater. This is a tripod fish, and they live up to 15,000 feet deep and walk, not swim, across the ocean's floor. And finally, elongated skulls like this one were found deep in an underwater cave off the coast of Asia, and nobody knows what happened to them or how they got there.
Two-sentence horror stories. I looked out from the second floor at a bloody mess outside on the street and realized that my parents had been lying to me. They told me babies were bouncing bundles of joy, but my brother had barely bounced at all. "What's it like being dead?" the little girl asked me. I held her hand, looked at her in the eye, and spelled out "cold and lonely" on the Ouija board. "It's all in your head," my doctor told me, as we both stared, horrified, at my x-ray. The aliens interviewed every last human to see if they were good and worth saving. Then they asked the animals. As the rapture began, I was bitterly disappointed to find myself left behind, and then I looked up at the departing figures and saw all the open jaws awaiting them in the sky. My son wakes me up by screaming at the top of his lungs. It always gets louder leading up to the anniversary of his death.
Scariest two-sentence horror stories. My sister says that mommy killed her, but mommy says I don't have a sister. I can't move, breathe, speak, or hear, and it's so dark all the time. If I knew it would be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead. My daughter won't stop crying and screaming in the middle of the night. I visit her grave and ask her to stop, but it doesn't help. She asked why I was breathing so heavily. I wasn't. If you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure to like and follow.
This is why some people are afraid of the Tooth Fairy. Now, most people know the Tooth Fairy as this sweet, fun-loving little fairy that will take your tooth and give you money in exchange. But there are some legends from Europe that go much darker than this. And these tales often involve witches who disguise themselves as the Tooth Fairy. Some kids are actually afraid when they lose their tooth, so they throw it out as soon as possible so a witch cannot find them. Because it's believed in some places that if a witch finds your tooth, she will be able to gain complete control over that person. So if she has that part of you, she will ruin your life. There's one English legend that tells of a witch named Jenny Greenteeth. She was a witch that was said to hide in scum-filled ponds to catch unsuspecting children. Now, parents would usually use this Jenny Greenteeth to frighten their children into obedience. And the pond scum in which the witch hides is said to resemble green teeth. So this story is used to encourage children to brush their teeth so they don't get gross teeth like the witch.
This is the haunting story of Jeff the Killer. Jeff was a young boy who moved into a new home with his family. One day, 3 teenage boys decided to attack Jeff and his brother, but Jeff managed to fight them off, leaving them in the streets with broken wrists and knife wounds. Unfortunately, after the incident, Jeff realized that he genuinely enjoyed inflicting pain and suffering on others. Later that night, Jeff's mother began to hear a strange noise coming from the bathroom of their house. It sounded like someone was crying. When she entered the room, she found Jeff carving a permanent smile into his cheeks, and she also realized that he had cut off his eyelids so he wouldn't have to sleep. Jeff's final words to his mother were, "Mom, you lied," after which he murdered his entire family and disappeared into the night. He was never seen again, but legend has it, he's looking for his next victim.
This is the scary story about the sister. There was a brother and sister named Alec and Taylor. One day, Alec was annoying Taylor by pulling her hair and poking her. Taylor began to get very mad and said, "If you do it again, I'm going to kill you." Alec didn't care and then pulled her hair again. Taylor then got up and walked away. Later that night, Alec was lying in his bed when he heard his door slowly opening. He then turned and saw his sister Taylor standing there with something in her hand. Before Alec could even say a word, Taylor jumped on him and stabbed him countless times, and killing him. Taylor then called the police and turned herself in. Taylor was then sent to a mental asylum and will stay there for the rest of her life.
This is why you should always trust your kids. A little girl named Casey grew up in a small town. She didn't have many friends, but she was always hanging out with her mom and dad. While the mom was at work, Casey would spend majority of her time with her dad by just watching TV. This went on for a little while until things started to get odd. Casey one day saw her dad placing knives in the living room. Casey asked, "Dad, what are you doing with these knives?" And the dad just looked at her and said, "Don't tell mom." Casey did as she was told and didn't say anything. The mom came home from work and saw the knives in the living room and asked Casey why did she put these knives in the living room. Casey, keeping the promise to her father, says nothing and takes the blame for it. The next day, Casey saw her father placing knives in the bathroom. Casey once again asked, "Dad, what are you doing?" And the dad looked at her and said, "Don't tell mommy." Casey once again said nothing and took the blame for it. The next day, Casey saw her father placing knives in her bedroom. Casey asked, "Dad, what are you doing with these knives?" The dad turned and said, "Shh." The mom busted down the door and said, "Casey, what are you doing with these knives?" Casey, scared, says, "It wasn't me, it was Dad. He's the one who's been doing this." The mom stops and stares at Casey and says, "Casey, your dad was murdered 10 years ago." Make sure to like and follow for more videos.
So I think that's the end of the video now. Bye bye guys. Don't forget to subscribe. That was scary.